Alright, another picture of the skirt here, another video of the skirt. Seem to have a slight issue here. I've got this clamped where it's flush front and back. These two pieces are flush front and back. That leaves me with this, which I think is my problem piece. If I line this up flush front and back, that is definitely not right. that is way off. Now, it's a little bit hard to tell because I've got the other two sides clamped. But one thing I noticed is if you look at this part, if I do line this joint up flush in the back, it's flush right here. But by the time you get to the end of this support, this piece is obviously longer. So, yeah, I don't know if my printer messed that up again or if it's the sliced file. I might actually load the file into my slicer and put those two pieces up against each other and see. I don't know if my slicer maybe messed it up when it sliced it or if my printer had an issue printing it. It's just weird that the back corner would be fine and the front corner would be off like that. If I do put this one together with my fingers, just kind of flush up the front, then I can go over here and kind of join this together. So I'm trying to figure out how to fix this basically without reprinting this entire piece. If I reprint it and find out that there's something wrong in the file and it just does the same thing again, that's a lot of plastic wasted. And it is just the skirt that nobody sees. These holes bolted to the first row of the body. So I should be able to make those holes a bit bigger so the bolt can move around and line up with the first ring of the body if it's a bit off. So what I'm tempted to do now is sand this angle piece off. So you can see it's a straight line join, and then this angle. If I sand, grind, whatever, this angle piece inward, then this piece will be able to go down further. So if I can get it down to the point where the front edge lines up, the back edge will just be like I said, it's like a 1/16 of an inch off. It's not a huge amount that it's off. That might get that lined up, and then I'm not sure exactly what that's going to do back here. This piece still might end up being off. I haven't looked to see if there's a forward and backward on the skirt. I mean, just looking at it from here, it kind of looks like it wouldn't matter which direction it goes. So if anything looks a bit odd, it would be here and I could face it backwards. This is a rib, so you might not even notice it. It might just be this rib is a little bit shallower than this one after I ended up sanding it to get it even. There's a lot of surface area there. I could maybe go with a soldering iron across and just make sure it's connected, even though it's going to be at a slightly weird angle if I don't think gluing is going to get enough of it. So I think I'll try that first. Just take this angle down, sand that angle down, because it's not going to hurt anything. There's still a huge surface area to glue, and it's not a load-bearing part. It sits at the bottom of R2, and then it bolts to the next level up. So I think I'll try that, taking some material off of that angle, because it seems like the easiest thing to do to get this thing to the point where it'll all glue together. Even if I went, and I don't know, I've used mesh mixer before to chop things up, but usually just in straight lines. So even if I could figure out how to take one of these files in the mesh mixer, cut a piece, and like make a filler piece, it's still it's too high up here. If I get this side perfectly lined up, flush front and back, it's still too high here because of that odd way that it lines up here, but it's off there. So I think that's what I'll do, is grind that and see if that helps. This is piece A and B in Prusa slicer, and putting the pieces together, they fit perfectly, so it's not a problem with the models. Unfortunately, I can't slice them because the two pieces put together are bigger than my print bed, so there's a little error message down at the bottom of the screen basically saying, hey, something's off the printable area. I mean, I guess I could reduce them in size by 50% and then slice them and see if I can see something introduced by the slicer, but at this point I'm thinking it must have been my printer. How or what or why, I don't know. It makes me nervous for the rest of the project. If pieces can just be printed out of alignment like that. I'm sure I'm not the only one, though, that has this issue. So, I'll have to look online. I have just signed up, sent a request to sign up to the 3D Printed Droids Facebook group, where I can probably find more information about this, maybe. I have tried dremeling some of the top of the actual piece, and it does seem to be making it fit a bit better. I'm also going to have to dremel the other side of the piece. This side up here. Because dremeling the other side makes a slight, I just moved it out of position there. Dremeling this side makes these pieces not fit perfectly flush, so this one isn't fitting flush, so I'm basically going to have to dremel a bunch of this away, which again will still leave this surface area that should mate okay. If I'm nervous that that's not strong enough, again on a piece that doesn't really support any weight, not structural, I could put a piece of plastic across here and glue it in as like a brace, and maybe down here, maybe even across this side. Well, I guess what I'm going to have to do is try that, get the pieces put together, and then put the top ring pieces on top of it and see how the holes line up. If the holes line up a little bit off, that should be okay. I should be able to elongate the holes. Or again, I could just try reprinting that one large piece and see if it prints properly the second time. filed away some of this angle so I could push this piece back so it's flush up front, which puts it just a little bit off in the back. Sanded off, Dremeled off down this seam on this side of this one piece that's off, making the rib, I mean, I can, if I just get another decent clamp, I can clamp that so it's flush. There's plenty enough room for glue for a good bond. This one's flush. This one's flush. So it looks like just kind of manhandling this piece into shape by dremeling it and then using a couple clamps to, when I glue it, it should be okay. Now the question is, are the holes going to line up all right? Yeah, and that's kind of hard to tell because I can't really clamp this together because of the shape of it and put the first ring of the base on top of it. You can't, it's probably going to fall apart. You can't really, well, maybe I could clamp the bottom. I guess there is that flat section there. You wouldn't be pulling the pieces towards each other, though. You'd just be clamping them down there. Like I said, I think it'll be okay. This is only like 1/16 of an inch off here. And this actually feels fairly flush there. And when I pull this, it's basically just kind of flexing this plastic just a bit to get that seam to line up because it's just a hair off. But this feels pretty lined up. So I think these two screws, this one will be the worst and this one next. I think in the instructions it says you don't need to use the corner pieces, and getting a bolt in that corner piece looks like it'd be a pain in the neck. So I'm thinking you'll use 4 bolts to bolt this to the body. Oh, and also there's the plate that holds the third leg, center leg. They all get bolted together. I mean, we're pretty well flush on top. So yeah, I think the only issue might be these 2 holes. I guess these 2 might also be an issue because they should be a little bit in this direction. And these are made so you can put bolts behind it, so the bolt heads will go behind this. So this part might actually not be what I have to enlarge the holes. It might be the ring of the body that sits over this piece, and then, as I said, there's a big heavy plate that supports the center leg. So that those pieces I might just have to like enlarge these holes. Like I said, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. I haven't looked up the hardware required for these, so I'm not sure how tight of a fit they are, if these holes are exactly the size of the bolts or if there's a little wiggle room built into the model. I don't know yet, but I'm happy with this. Like I said, if I just have another clamp up here, maybe use one of these stronger ones over here, since this piece is gonna, it's the only one that's actually gonna need to have any movement holding it in place, as opposed to just the others that are just kind of, these 2 are definitely just lined up fine on their own. This one, now that I ground that off, pretty much just lines up on its own to glue. And this is the only one that's has to be forced into position to glue. And even if I don't modify that, if I just clamp it together, it's only like a 1/16 off. If I shave that down, nobody's probably going to see that it's short. Or if I raise this up, because yes, this and this are also a 1/16 of an inch off, but your eye won't notice that because it's got this rib in the middle, so it's not an unbroken curve. It's got a break in it, so that'll kind of fool your eye into thinking that it's right, even if it is just a little bit off. And again, like I said, it looks like it doesn't have a front side and a back side. So if I can just put that to the back, then there's even less chance of anyone noticing it. So yeah, so just wondering if this is the kind of thing everybody goes through who makes one of these. Not enough build logs that actually show problems and overcoming them. They just kind of show, here's the parts, and that they had to sand them and prime them and fill them and sand them, and doesn't really go into detail on issues too much. The few build logs there are for these. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Although I wish I could put my first ring on top of it. Maybe I'll try and take the clamps off and then gently lay the first ring on top of it and see what the holes look like. All right, this is about as good as I can get it. I can't clamp the bottom. There's no way to clamp the bottom and put the ring on the top of it. So it's just pressed together as close as I can get it. And I'm not sure how good this is going to focus, but if we go around the bolt holes here, looking directly above the bolt holes, that one there, just a hair out of alignment. That one just a hair out of alignment. Yeah. And these are actually fine, which is interesting that these are fine when this block is the trouble block, and it's actually back. So it's flush in the front and not in the back, but the holes are lined up perfectly. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 there. I think I've knocked that one a little bit. So again, there's this has some slight gaps because it's not been, I haven't clamped it or glued it, and I also haven't decided if I'm going to do some more sanding to try and get it a little bit closer together or not. But just a loose fit tells me that that's pretty darn close, and I should be able to just modify the hole size to get the bolts through there, and it shouldn't take that much because they're really close. So I'm thinking that this is going to work. Again, rather than printing that one block over again and then maybe find out that there's something with my printer which it does another one bad, and then that's 2 prints, and I think those were like 20-hour prints. Have 2 bad 20-hour prints, or just do this where it looks like it's going to line up fine. It looks like it's a good solution, viable solution. Again, that's skirt is not load bearing, just bolts come up through it into this, and then there's a plate that lays on top of this that's really thick, and the bolts just clamp all 3 things together, and then the center leg clamps to the plate. So I'm thinking that this is okay, and that maybe my next step is for the skirt, is to go ahead and start spraying some primer filler on it and sanding it smooth, and then maybe it can be glued together. And again, this first ring, very close to being all the mating surfaces joining tight, but just off just a little in here. The outside ones on either side are, but these inside ones are just a little bit off. I mean, it's really, really, really close. Again, how far, how much perfection are you going to expect from a 3D printed part? Am I crazy thinking that it should be perfect? Everything should line up exactly right? Is this like standard what people deal with when they make these? I'm not sure, but hopefully I'll get access to the Facebook group and be able to start asking more questions and figure out if I'm on the right track here. In the meantime, supposedly my additional 5 spools of white PLA are on their way. Which again, I was just going to use this same brand, so the body, I used up all the same brand PLA before I got into a different brand. Now I'm kind of thinking maybe I should stick with white, even though it'll be 2 brands, and just use the colored stuff for the legs or greebles or something. I don't know. Somehow I'll end up using all of this PLA that I got for super cheap with my TiVo Tornado printer off Craigslist, so that's gonna save money, because that's, what was that, 5 spools, 6 spools if I use the clear, so that saves a chunk of money. So that's kind of where I am for today. Not sure I'm going to do anything else today. I start my work week today, so